The dust storm came without warning. Unipark looked up from her sample container and saw the wall of brown and gray, rushing toward her across the empty plain. The moon of Kiro 7 was supposed to be calm. The reports said so. The galactic survey teams had marked it as safe, boring even. Just rocks, dead plants, and a few harmless animals that ate moss. But the storm did not care about reports. "Team, fall back to the shuttle." Captain Taiho's voice crackled through her helmet radio. "Everyone move now." Yuna grabbed her equipment bag and started running. The ground beneath her boots was loose and slippery. Small stones rolled under her feet. She could see the others ahead of her, their suit lights blinking in the growing darkness, as the storm swallowed the pale sunlight. Then she fell. Her foot caught on something buried in the ground. She went down hard, her knee hitting a sharp rock. Pain shot up her leg. Her sample container flew from her hands and disappeared into the swirling dust. "Yuna, report," Taiho called. "Your signal is weak." She tried to stand, but her legs screamed in protest. The storm was on her now, pressing against her suit, filling her vision with nothing but brown chaos. She could not see the shuttle. She could not see anything. "I'm okay," she said, though she was not sure if that was true. "I fell. I cannot see the shuttle." It was static on the radio. Then silence. Yuna pulled herself up using a nearby boulder. The wind pushed her sideways. She needed shelter. She needed to get out of this storm before it tore her suit apart. Through the dust, she saw a shape. It was large and dark, rising from the ground like a broken tooth. A structure of some kind. The old ruins that the survey team had photographed from orbit. They said the ruins were thousands of years old, maybe more. Nobody knew who built them. She limped toward the structure. The entrance was a gaping hole in the stone wall, half collapsed but big enough for her to squeeze through. Inside, the wind died. The dust still hung in the air, but it was calm, quiet. Yuna sat down against the inner wall and caught her breath. Her leg hurt badly, but the suit's medical system said nothing was broken, just bruised. She would live. She pulled out her radio and tried again. "Captain, I found shelter in the ruins. I am safe. Please respond." More static. Then Taiho's voice, broken and faint. "Understood. Stay there. Storm will pass in 1 hour. We will come for you." She could wait 1 hour. Yuna looked around the dark chamber. Her helmet light showed walls covered in strange markings. They looked like writing, but not any writing she knew. Curved lines and sharp angles mixed, together in patterns that seemed almost familiar. She was studying the markings when she heard the sound. It was soft. A footstep. Then another. Yuna turned her light toward the back of the chamber. Something was moving in the shadows. Something big. Her heart began to beat faster. The report said there were no predators on Kira 7, only small herbivores. Harmless creatures that ate moss and avoided contact with anything larger than themselves. But the thing that stepped into her light was not small. It had 6 legs and a body like a wolf, but larger, much larger. Its fur was silver and blue, shimmering in the helmet light like water under moonlight. Its eyes were huge and dark, reflecting her light back at her like mirrors. Yuna stopped breathing. The creature stopped too. It stood perfectly still, watching her with those enormous eyes. It did not growl. It did not bare its teeth. It just looked at her. Slowly, Yuna raised her hands to show she was not a threat. "Easy," she whispered. "I am not going to hurt you. I am just waiting for the storm to pass." The creature tilted its head. It was a strangely human gesture. Yuna forced herself to breathe. According to the database, this must be one of the creatures classified as harmless. A simple herbivore. It probably came to the ruins for shelter too. There was nothing to fear. She lowered her hands and leaned back against the wall, trying to look calm. The creature continued to watch her. Then slowly, it began to walk toward her. Yuna tensed, but did not move. Running would be stupid. The storm was still raging outside, and she could not run fast with her injured leg anyway. Better to stay still and hope the creature was just curious. It came closer. 3 meters. 2 meters. 1 meter, then it stopped. The creature was looking at her arm. Yuna glanced down and saw that her suit sleeve had torn when she fell. The fabric was ripped from her wrist to her elbow. Her skin was visible underneath. Her tattoo was showing. The tattoo covered most of her forearm. It was a memorial for her grandmother, who had died 3 years ago. Her grandmother had been a linguist who studied dead languages. Languages that nobody spoke anymore, before she died. She taught Yuna some of the old words and helped her choose the text for the tattoo. The words were in ancient Sumerian, one of the oldest written languages from Earth. They said, "We who carry fire shall never walk in darkness." The creature stared at the tattoo. Its body had gone completely still. Even its breathing seemed to stop, while Yuna felt a chill run down her spine. The creature was not just looking at her tattoo. It was reading it. That was impossible. It was an animal. Animals could not read. And even if they could, how would an alien creature on a distant moon know ancient Sumerian? The language had been dead for thousands of years. Only a handful of scholars on Earth could read it, but the creature kept staring. Its dark eyes moved along the lines of text, as if following the words. Then it did something that made Yuna's blood turn cold. It walked to the entrance of the chamber and lay down, blocking the exit. Not in an aggressive way. More like a guard dog settling in front of a door. It was guarding her. Yuna sat frozen against the wall. She did not understand what was happening. She did not understand any of this. The creature turned its head toward her. It opened its mouth, and it made a sound. The sound was low and deep. It vibrated through the air and into Yuna's chest. It was not a growl or a howl or any animal noise she had ever heard. It was structured. It had rhythm and tone. It sounded like a word. Yuna stared at the creature. The creature stared back at her with those ancient, knowing eyes. Outside, the storm continued to rage. Inside, the silence was heavy with something Yuna could not name. Something old. Something waiting. She looked at her tattoo, then back at the creature. "What are you?" she whispered. The creature did not answer. But something in its eyes told Yuna that it understood the question, and that the answer would change everything. The storm passed after 1 hour. Just as Captain Taiho had promised, Yuna heard the sound of boots on stone before she saw the lights. Her team had come for her. She should have felt relief, but instead she felt something else. Fear. Not for herself, but for the creature. Yuna. Junho's voice echoed through the ruins. He was the security officer, and he was always the first one into any situation. "Are you okay?" "I'm here," she called back. "I'm fine. But listen, there's something." Junho came around the corner with his weapon raised. 2 other team members were behind him. Their lights fell on the creature at the same moment. "Get down!" Junho shouted. He aimed his rifle at the creature's head. Hostile contact. No. Yuna threw herself forward, putting her body between the weapon and the creature. "Don't shoot. It's not hostile." Junho stared at her like she had lost her mind. "That thing is the size of a transport vehicle. Move aside. It didn't hurt me. It protected me." Yuna held up her hands. "Please, lower your weapon." The creature had not moved. It sat calmly on its 6 legs, watching the humans with those large dark eyes. It showed no fear, no aggression, just patience. Junho kept his weapon raised for a long moment. Then, slowly, he lowered it. "Fine, but if it moves wrong, I'm putting it down." The walk back to the shuttle was tense. Yuna limped along with Dr. Jisu's help, while the others kept their eyes on the creature. It followed them at a distance, never coming too close, but never falling too far behind. "What is that thing?" Jisu whispered. "The database says the only life forms here are small herbivores." "I don't know," Yuna said. "But it's not what the database says." When they reached the shuttle, Captain Taiho was waiting at the ramp. His face was hard as he looked at the creature standing 50 meters away. "Someone want to explain why we have a giant predator following us?" "It's not a predator," Yuna said. "At least I don't think it is. It found me in the ruins and just stayed with me. Guarded me even. Guarded you from what?" Yuna had no answer. They flew back to the research vessel in silence. Through the shuttle window, Yuna watched the creature grow smaller and smaller until it was just a silver dot on the brown surface of the moon. That night, she could not sleep. She lay in her bunk and thought about the sound the creature had made. That low, deep sound that had felt like a word. It was crazy. She knew it was crazy, but she could not stop thinking about it. Finally, she got up and went to her workstation. She pulled up the recording from her suit camera and found the moment when the creature had made the sound. She played it back, listening carefully. Then she ran it through the ship's linguistic analysis program. The results made her sit. Back in her chair, the program had found patterns in the sound. Phonetic structures, rhythm and tone variations that matched known language families. The computer could not identify the specific language, but it was certain about one thing. The sound was not random. It was speech. Yuna opened another program. This one contained her grandmother's research files. Years of work on dead languages, saved on a personal drive that Yuna had carried with her since the funeral. She began comparing the creature's vocalization to the languages in her grandmother's database: Akkadian, Babylonian, Elamite. One by one, she eliminated them. Then she tried Sumerian. The match was not perfect. The creature's sound was older, stranger, shaped by a throat that was not human. But the basic structure was there. The rising tone at the end. The specific combination of sounds. The creature had spoken a word in ancient Sumerian. Yuna stared at the screen until her eyes burned. This was impossible. This was completely, absolutely impossible. And yet the data was right there in front of her. She did not tell anyone. Not yet. She needed to be sure. The next morning, she went to Captain Taiho and asked for permission to return to the surface. Alone. Absolutely not, Taiho said. That creature is still down there, and we have no idea what it is. That's exactly why I need to go back. Something is happening here, Captain. Something important. Then we send a full team with weapons. Yeah. If we do that, we might scare it away, or make it hostile. Yuna leaned forward. Please, give me 2 hours. I'll stay in radio contact the whole time. Taiho studied her face for a long moment. What aren't you telling me? Yuna hesitated. Then she told him about the recording, about the linguistic analysis, about the match to Smark. Taiho listened without expression. When she finished, he was quiet for almost a minute. 2 hours, he finally said. And if you don't report every 15 minutes, we're coming down with everything we have. Yuna landed near the ruins as the pale sun rose over the horizon. The dust from yesterday's storm had settled. Leaving the landscape clean and silent, the creature was waiting for her. It sat at the entrance to the ruins, exactly where she had last seen it. As she approached, it rose to its full height. Yuna stopped breathing. The creature was bigger than she remembered. Much bigger. Yesterday, lying down and calm, it had seemed almost gentle. Now, standing tall on its 6 legs, it was terrifying. Its shoulders were higher than her head. Its body was all muscle and power. This was not a herbivore. This was a predator. A hunter. Something designed to kill. But it did not attack. It waited. Yuna swallowed her fear. She had come this far. She would not run now. She stepped closer. The creature watched her with those ancient eyes. Then Yuna spoke. Her grandmother had taught her some Sumerian phrases when she was young. Simple things. Greetings. Questions. She had not used them in years, and her pronunciation was terrible. But she tried. Who are you? She said in the old language. The words felt strange on her tongue. The creature went very still. Then it rose even higher. Its body stretching upward until it towered over her. Its form seemed to shift, to grow more defined, more present. The silver-blue fur caught the sunlight and blazed like cold fire, and it spoke. The voice was deep and resonant, vibrating through the air and into her bones. The words were Sumerian, but older than any Sumerian she had ever heard, purer, closer to the source. You carry the old words. child of the Wanderers. How Yuna could not move, could not think, could barely breathe. You speak, she finally managed. You really speak. The creature lowered its great head until its eyes were level with hers. Those eyes were not the eyes of an animal. They held intelligence, wisdom, and something that looked almost like hope. I have waited a very long time, the creature said. I had forgotten why, but when I saw the marks on your skin, I remembered. It looked at her tattoo. I remembered everything. Yuna felt tears forming in her eyes, though she did not know why. She was standing on a dead moon at the edge of known space, talking to an alien creature in a language that had been dead for 5,000 years, and somehow, possibly, it felt like coming home. What are you? She whispered. What is this place? The creature sat back on its haunches, making itself smaller, less threatening. I will tell you, it said. But first you must tell me something. Your people, the Wanderers from the Blue World. How did you survive? How did you find your way back to the stars? Yuna did not understand the question, but she understood that the answer mattered more than anything she had ever said before. The creature was waiting, and millions of years of silence were about to end. The creature's name was Mallow. It was not a name that translated easily into human language. It meant something like keeper of memory, or the one who does not forget. Mallow had chosen it long ago, when the stars were young and the galaxy was full of voices. Now those voices were silent. All except one. Sit with me, Mallow said to Yuna. This will take time. They sat together inside the ruins, in the same chamber where Yuna had first found shelter from the storm. The walls around them were covered in the strange writing she had noticed before. Now she realized it was not strange at all. It was familiar. Some of the symbols were the same as her tattoo. Mallow began to speak, and as it spoke, something strange happened. Images appeared in Yuna's mind. Not words, but visions. Memories that were not her own. She saw the galaxy as it had been millions of years ago. Full of life, full of light, a great civilization stretched across thousands of star systems. They called themselves the Ankai. They were the oldest and wisest of all peoples. The Ankai were scholars and builders. They traveled between stars, studying everything they found. They cataloged planets and species. They built great archives to store their knowledge. They believed that understanding the universe was the highest purpose any being could have, and then they found Earth. Yuna saw the blue planet through the eyes of Ankai explorers. It was so young then, so new. The continents were in different places. The ice was thicker at the poles, and the humans were just beginning to discover what they could be. Your ancestors were painting on cave walls when we first saw them, Mallow said. They were making tools from stone and bone. They were learning to work together, to speak, to dream. The Ankai watched. They studied, and they were amazed. Humans were different from other young species. They learned faster. They created more. They had something the Ankai had never seen before, a fire inside them that would not go out. A hunger to understand and grow and become more than they were. We called you the fire carriers, Mallow said, the ones who would not stay in darkness. Some of the Ankai went down to walk among the humans. They disguised themselves, hiding their true forms. They lived in human villages. They shared human struggles. And slowly, carefully, they began to teach. They taught humans how to plant seeds and grow food. They taught them how to track the seasons and predict the weather. They taught them how to write. The first human writing was not invented by humans alone, Mallow said. It was a gift. A shared creation between your people and mine. Yuna touched her tattoo. The Sumerian words suddenly felt different, heavier, more meaningful. You're saying that ancient human languages came from you? Not from us. With us. Mallow's voice was gentle. We learned from you as much as you learned from us. Your words, your symbols, your ways of naming things, they were beautiful to us. We adopted them. We made them sacred. The Ankai carried human language back to the stars. They used it in their rituals, their archives, their most important documents. The words that humans had invented to describe their small world became the words that an empire used to describe the universe. And then the empire fell. Yuna saw it in her mind, the darkness coming, a shadow spreading across the stars. Ships of terrible design, filled with hunger and hate. The Riven. They came from outside, Malo said. From the spaces between galaxies. They had no world of their own, no history, no culture. They only knew how to take, how to consume. The war lasted centuries. The Yonkai fought with everything they had, but the Riven were endless. For every ship destroyed, 10 more came. For every world saved, 20 more fell. In the end, the Yonkai made a choice. They hid their greatest treasures, their archives, their technology, their knowledge, and secret places across the galaxy. They created guardians to protect these places. Creatures of great power and intelligence engineered to wait for as long as necessary. The Veil. I am the last of my kind, Malo said. The others have died or gone mad over the long years. I alone remain, because I alone remembered the mission. What mission? Malo looked at Yuna with ancient, tired eyes. To wait for the fire carriers. To wait for the ones who still speak the old words. Malo touched Yuna's arm gently with one massive paw. To wait for you? Yuna felt tears running down her face. She did not wipe them away. Why us? She asked. Out of all the species in the galaxy, why were we so important? Because you survived, Malo said. The Yonkai knew they could not win the war. They knew they would fall. But they believed that one day someone would rise to take their place. Someone would carry the fire forward. Malo rose and walked to the wall covered in symbols. They believed it would be you, the young species from the blue world, the ones who learned so fast and dreamed so big. Malo turned back to face her. They bet everything on you, Yuna. Their knowledge, their legacy, their hope. Yuna sat in silence for a long moment. The weight of Malo's words pressed down on her. An entire civilization had looked at humanity and seen something worth saving, something worth believing in. And they had been waiting millions of years for humans to prove them right. The archives, Yuna said. You mentioned archives. What's in them? Everything, Malo said. The knowledge of 10,000 worlds. Technology that could reshape your civilization. History that has been forgotten since before your son was born. This place. These ruins? This is one of the archives. Not the largest, but important. Malo gestured at the symbols on the walls. The entrance to the deeper chambers is here, but it has been sealed since the fall. It can only be opened by one who carries the old words. Yuna looked down at her tattoo again. The words her grandmother had chosen. The words she had carried on her skin for 3 years without understanding what they meant. I can open it. Perhaps, but we must be careful. Malo's voice became grave. When I awoke and saw your markings, I sent a signal. I did not mean to. It was instinct, built into me by my creators. The signal was meant to call the Yonkai home. But the Yonkai are dead. Yes. Malo lowered its great head. And I fear something else heard the signal. Something that has been waiting just as long as I have. Yuna felt cold, despite her suit's temperature control. The Riven. They never left. They had been dormant, scattered, waiting for signs of Yonkai activity. And now they have one. Yuna stood up quickly. We need to tell my captain. We need to prepare, Malo said. But you must understand something first. Your ship cannot fight the Riven. No weapon you have can hurt them. Your only hope is the archive. What's in the archive that can help us? Malo walked toward the back of the chamber where the symbols were densest. The Yonkai prepared for this. They knew that whoever came to awaken the archives might face the Riven. So they left defenses, weapons, but they can only be activated from inside. And to get inside, someone needs to speak the old words, not just speak them. Malo looked at her tattoo. Carry them, believe them. Be them. Yuna took a deep breath. She thought of her grandmother, who had dedicated her life to keeping dead languages alive. She thought of the words she had chosen for her tattoo. Words that had seemed like poetry, but now sounded like a promise. We who carry fire shall never walk in darkness. Tell me what I need to do, she said. Before Malo could answer, Yuna's radio crackled to life. It was Captain Taiho, and his voice was full of fear. Yuna, get back to the ship now. We're picking up contacts on long-range sensors. Dozens of them. They're coming out of deep space, and they're heading straight for us. Yuna looked at Malo. The ancient guardian's eyes were calm, but sad. It has begun, Malo said. The darkness is coming, and you are the only light we have left. The bridge of the horizon's edge was chaos. Crew members rushed between stations, calling out numbers and coordinates. Warning lights flashed red. On the main screen, dozens of contacts moved toward them like a swarm of insects. Captain Taiho stood in the center of it all, his face hard as stone. Report, he said as Yuna came through the door with Malo behind her. The creature barely fit through the entrance. Its silver-blue fur brushed against the walls, and its massive head nearly touched the ceiling. Every crew member stopped to stare. Eyes on your work, Taiho snapped. They obeyed. He turned to Yuna. You have 30 seconds to explain why you brought that thing onto my ship. Because it's the only reason we might survive this, Yuna said. She pointed at the screen. Those ships are called the Riven. They destroyed a civilization that ruled the galaxy for millions of years. Our weapons won't scratch them. Then what do you suggest we do? Surrender? No. Yuna stepped forward. There's an archive in the ruins. It contains weapons the Ankai left behind. Weapons that can destroy the Riven. Dr. Jisoo spoke up from her station. The Ankai. You mean the aliens who built the ruins? They were more than builders, Malo said. Its deep voice filled the bridge, and everyone fell silent. They were the guardians of all knowledge, the protectors of life, and they chose humanity to carry their legacy. Taiho stared at the creature. Then he looked at Yuna. You're asking me to believe that this thing is friendly? That aliens we've never heard of left weapons for us to find? That those ships out there are some kind of ancient enemy? Yes, Yuna said simply. This is insane. Captain Junho called from the tactical station. The contacts are slowing down. They're taking formation. It looks like they're preparing to attack. Taiho closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his face had changed. The doubt was still there, but something else was stronger now. Determination. How long until they reach us? 40 minutes at current speed, Taiho turned back to Yuna. Tell me what you need. Shuttle. Time. And someone to stay in contact with me while I'm in the archive. But you're going back down there. Now, the archive is the only thing that can save us. Yuna met his eyes. The entrance is sealed. It can only be opened by someone who carries their language, their words. She held up her arm, showing her tattoo. This isn't just a memorial. It's a key. Taiho was silent for a long moment. Around him, the bridge hummed with tension. Junho, prepare a shuttle for immediate launch. Jisoo, go with her. Keep the comms open and tell us everything that happens. He looked at Malo. Can you fight? I was created for war, Malo said. But I am old, and there is only one of me. Then buy us time on the surface. Protect them until they get inside. Malo bowed its great head. It would be my honor. The shuttle dropped through the thin atmosphere of Kira 7 like a falling star. Yuna watched the brown surface rise up to meet them through the window. Behind them, the horizon's edge was already moving, turning to face the incoming fleet. They're going to fight, Gaisu said quietly. They can't win. They don't have to win, Yuna replied. They just have to give us enough time. The shuttle landed hard near the ruins. Yuna was out before the dust settled, running toward the entrance with Malo beside her. Gaisu followed, carrying a medical kit and a portable comm unit. Captain, we're on the ground, Gaisu reported. Moving into the ruins now? Understood. The Riven fleet is approaching. 20 minutes until contact. Inside the ruins, the air was cold and still. Yuna followed Malo through chambers she had not seen before. The symbols on the walls grew more complex as they went deeper. Some of them glowed faintly in the darkness. The entrance is ahead, Malo said. I have not been there since the fall. I do not know what we will find. They reached a massive door carved into the stone. It was covered in symbols, thousands of them, spiraling out from a central point. At the center was a panel shaped like a human handprint. "Place your hand there," Malo said. "Speak the words on your skin." Yuna stepped forward. She pressed her palm against the cold stone. The symbols around her began to glow brighter. She spoke. The Sumerian words felt different now, heavier, fuller. They were not just sounds anymore. They were power. "He who carry fire shall never walk in darkness." The door did not open. Yuna felt panic rising in her chest. It didn't work. Why didn't it work? "Say it again," Malo urged. "Mean it. Feel it." These words were not made for speaking. They were made for believing. Above them the ground shook. The battle had begun. On the horizon's edge, Captain Taiho watched the riven ships approach on his screen. They were ugly things, angular and black, like shards of broken glass floating in space. They moved in perfect formation, surrounding his vessel on all sides. "All weapons ready," Junho reported from Tactical. "Though I don't know what good they'll do." "Fire when ready," Taiho said. "Make every shot count." The first volley lit up the darkness. Energy beams and missiles streaked toward the riven ships. They hit their targets. Nothing happened. The weapons splashed against the black hulls like water against stone. No damage. No effect at all. "They're returning fire," Junho shouted. The ship lurched. Alarms screamed. Sparks flew from damaged consoles. "Hull breach on Deck 4, someone called. "Engineering reports damage to main reactor." Taiho gripped his command chair. "Keep firing. Everything we have. We're going to die here." He knew that now. But if he could give Yuna a few more minutes, maybe it would be enough. In the ruins, Yuna heard the explosions above. The ceiling cracked. Dust rained down around her. "They're dying up there," Jisoo said. "We have to hurry." Yuna closed her eyes. She thought about her grandmother. The old woman sitting in her study, surrounded by books written in languages no one spoke anymore. Teaching a young girl words that had been dead for 5,000 years. "Why do you study these?" young Yuna had asked. "Nobody uses them." "What's the point?" Her grandmother had smiled. "Because words are never truly dead, my dear. They live on in us. In our blood, our bones, our hearts. As long as someone remembers, they are never gone." Yuna opened her eyes. She pressed her hand against the panel again. She spoke the words. But this time, she did not just say them. She felt them. She became them. "We who carry fire shall never walk in darkness." The words left her mouth in a language that was older than humanity, a language that had once stretched across the stars, and the door heard dot light exploded from the symbols. The ancient stone groaned and shifted. Slowly, impossibly, the massive door began to open. Beyond it was a chamber filled with blue light. "Go," Malo said. "I will guard this entrance. Nothing will pass me while I live." Yuna looked back at the ancient guardian. "Thank you, Malo, for waiting. For believing." Malo's eyes were soft. "Thank you for proving we were right." Yuna turned and ran into the light. Above the moon, the horizon's edge was burning. Half its systems were offline. Fires raged in a dozen compartments. Bodies floated in the vacuum where hull breaches had torn open the ship, but still they fought, Captain. Taiho stood on his broken bridge. Blood running down his face from a cut on his forehead. "Status," he demanded. "Main engines gone. Weapons at 20%. Shields failing." Stedho's voice was steady despite everything. "We can't last much longer, sir." Taiho nodded. He thought about Yuna, somewhere deep in the ruins. He thought about the strange creature that had promised to protect her. He thought about all the impossible things he had learned in the last few hours. "Then we make these minutes count," he said. "All hands, this is the captain. Give them everything." The horizon's edge turned toward the largest riven ship and accelerated. If they were going to die, they would die as humans had. Always died. Fighting, burning, carrying fire into the darkness. The chamber of light was larger than Yuna had expected. It stretched up and out, far beyond what the ruins above could possibly contain. The walls were made of something that looked like crystal, glowing with soft blue fire. Symbols covered every surface. The same writing she now recognized as the shared language of humanity and the Onkai. At the center of the chamber stood a pillar of pure light. Inside it, suspended in the glow, was a crystalline structure shaped like a human heart. Yuna approached slowly. The air here was warm and hummed with energy. She could feel it on her skin, in her bones, in the old words that lived inside her. "Dr. Park?" Jisu's voice crackled through her earpiece. "What do you see?" "Something beautiful," Yuna whispered. "Something impossible." She reached the pillar and stopped. The crystal heart pulsed with light, and each pulse sent a wave of warmth through her body. It was waiting. Just like Malo had been waiting. Just like this whole place had been waiting for her. Yuna raised her tattooed arm toward the crystal. The words on her skin began to glow, matching the blue light around her. Then a voice spoke. It was not Malo's voice. This voice was different. Softer. Sadder. It came from everywhere and nowhere. From the walls and the light and the air itself. "Welcome, child of the Wanderers." Yuna froze. "Who are you?" "I am what remains. A memory. Hope. I was recorded here millions of years ago when we knew the end was coming." The voice paused. "My name has been forgotten, but I was a scholar of your world. I walked among your ancestors when they were learning to name the stars." Yuna felt tears forming in her eyes. She did not wipe them away. "I don't understand," she said. "Why us? Out of all the species in the galaxy, why did you choose humanity?" "Because you reminded us of ourselves. When we were young, we were like you, curious, hungry, burning with the need to know and grow and become. We saw that fire in you, and we knew." "Knew what?" "That you would survive, that you would rise, that one day you would find your way back to the stars and come looking for the answers we left behind." Above the chamber, the sounds of battle grew louder. The ground shook. Somewhere up there, Malo was fighting to protect this place. Somewhere beyond the atmosphere, the horizon's edge was dying to buy her time. "The Riven are here," Yuna said. "My friends are dying. How do I stop them?" "By becoming what you were always meant to be." The crystal heart pulsed brighter. A beam of light shot out and touched Yuna's tattooed arm. Pain flooded through her. Not sharp pain, but deep pain. The pain of growing. The pain of changing. The pain of becoming something more. Images filled her mind. She saw the Onkai at their height, a civilization of wonder and beauty. She saw them fall, crushed by the Riven's endless hunger. She saw them hide their treasures and record their hopes and build their guardians. And she saw what they had left for humanity, not just weapons, not just knowledge. A choice. "The defense network is ready," the voice said. "It has been ready for millions of years. But it cannot be activated by force. Only by will. Only by a choice made freely." "What choice?" "To take up the burden we are leaving behind. To become the guardians of knowledge. To carry the fire forward, not just for yourselves, but for all who will come after." Yuna thought about her grandmother. About the old woman who had spent her life studying dead languages because she believed that words mattered, that the past mattered. That carrying knowledge forward was a sacred duty. She thought about her crewmates dying in space. About Malo standing guard outside. About the Riven, hungry and patient, waiting to consume everything humanity might become. She thought about Earth. About the billions of people who had no idea what was happening. Who might wake up tomorrow to find humanity's future stolen before they even knew it was at stake. The voice spoke again, gentle and warm. "You do not have to accept. The choice must be free. But if you choose to carry this burden, you will not be alone. We have left guides, teachers, tools, everything you need to become what we could not. And if I refuse, then the archive will remain sealed. The defenses will stay dormant, and the Riven will do what they have always done." Yuna closed her eyes. She thought about the words on her arm. "We who carry fire shall never walk in darkness." Her grandmother had chosen them. Her grandmother, who had believed so deeply in the power of language and memory and hope, Yuna opened her eyes. "I accept," she said. The crystal heart exploded with light. Energy poured into Yuna. Through her, around her. She screamed, but it was not a scream of pain. It was a scream of power, of transformation, of becoming. Above her, on the surface of Kira 7. Weapons that had been sleeping for millions of years woke up. They rose from the ground like flowers turning toward the sun. Massive structures of crystal and light humming with power that human science could not begin to understand. They pointed toward the sky, toward the riven fleet that hung above like a cloud of death, and they fired. On the horizon's edge, Captain Taiho had accepted that he was about to die. The bridge was destroyed. Most of his crew was dead or wounded. The ship was falling toward the moon in a slow burning spiral. The Riven had stopped firing because they knew it was over. Then the light came. It erupted from the surface of the moon in a dozen places at once. Beams of pure white fire shot upward, cutting through the darkness like blades. They struck the Riven fleet with impossible precision. Ships that had shrugged off every weapon, humanity possessed, simply disappeared. One moment they were there, the next they were nothing but expanding clouds of ash and light. The crew stared in disbelief. "What the hell is that?" Junho whispered. Taiho watched the destruction below. The Riven fleet, dozens of ships strong, was being erased in seconds. Nothing could survive those beams. Nothing could even resist them. "That," he said slowly, "is what our xenobiologist found. The last Riven ship tried to flee. It turned and accelerated toward deep space, desperate to escape. But the beams followed it, tracking it with perfect accuracy. It died screaming into the void. And then there was silence. Yuna stood in the chamber of light, breathing hard. The crystal heart had gone dark, its energy spent. But she could feel something new inside her. Knowledge, power, purpose. The voice spoke one last time. "It is done. The first step has been taken. But this is only the beginning, child, of the Wanderers. You have inherited a galaxy of wonders and dangers. Use what we have given you wisely." "I will," Yuna promised. "We will. We know. That is why we chose you." The light faded. The chamber fell silent. But Yuna knew that the silence was temporary. There would be so much to learn, so much to do, so much to become. She turned and walked back toward the entrance. Malo was still there, wounded but alive. 3 dead Riven soldiers lay at its feet, creatures that had somehow made it down to the surface. The ancient guardian looked up as Yuna approached. "It is done?" Malo asked. Yuna nodded. "It is done." Malo lowered its great head. "Then my duty is complete. After all these years, I can finally rest." "No." Yuna knelt beside the creature and touched its silver-blue fur. "Your duty isn't complete. It's just beginning. We need teachers, Malo, guides. We need someone who remembers what the Ankai were and what they dreamed of." Malo's ancient eyes looked at her with something like surprise. "You would have me stay? I would have you help us become what they believed we could be." For a long moment, Malo was silent. Then slowly, it rose to its feet. "Very well," it said. "I will stay. I will teach. And I will watch the fire carriers become what we always knew they would." Yuna smiled through her tears. 1 week later, she stood on the bridge of a rescue vessel, looking out at the stars. The horizon's edge was being towed back to the nearest station for repairs. The survivors were recovering, and word of what had happened on Kiro 7 was spreading through human space. Captain Taiho stood beside her. "The governments are going to want answers," he said. "Everyone is going to want answers. Then we'll give them." Yuna looked down at her tattoo. The words still glowed faintly even now. "We'll tell them everything. About the Ankai. About the archives. About what they left for us. And then